I'd like to do today is show you, I've got the tail section here that I've got yet to lay out the feathers on, and I'm going to show you how I cut them in. What I'm going to do on the tail is kind of find the center, and I don't want it to be like exactly center because of the angle that the bird is sitting at. I want this side a little bit more pronounced. These raptors, when they're setting like this and their tails aren't fanned out, they have two center tail feathers, and a tail feather would be, they're kind of symmetrical. Okay, the center tail feather is kind of like this with as much fletching on both sides. As you get over into, let's say, the feather on the left side, all right, you'd have more like this with the part that lays under on the tail is longer. The lead edge, which gets most of the wind beating against it, is short and lays, the fletching lays long like this instead of more out as would be on this side. Saying all that, they have two center tail feathers and they pretty much lay right on top of each other, so it looks like they've only got one. So I've laid this line down. That's going to be represent the quill, because he's holding his wing right in the way. They also have 14 tail feathers. So I've got one, I call it, and you want 7 on each side. So I need 6 more. So let's see, 1, 2, 3, 5, 6. This is the side that's going to show the most. I've only got a little bit showing here, so they're fairly straight feather as opposed to some wing feathers that have a bit of a curve to them. These guys are fairly. This is like the most important tool ever. Now, when I've got a straight line to lay in, I like to use this. I refer to it as a burin. It's like a plow. It's triangular shaped, but it's got a clipped off end at just such an angle that when you push it this way, you're cutting a little furrow in the material. Because of the way it operates, it tracks very straight, so it's great for doing a line like this. Now once I get it tracked in like that, I like to go over it a few times. No mistake. I'm not starting at the very bottom. I'm going to save the curve at the bottom of the feather for after. All these guys cut in. This tooth is just big enough. Well, it's just small enough that I want to hold it in my hand, and big enough to be like almost too big to hold in my hand. So it's been a little awkward at times. This tool doesn't get it all the way. These tail feathers go up underneath the wing feathers, and so I can't go into there with this particular tool, but it does the majority of it, and I have other tools that will catch me up on those little details. I like those, go that extra little bit, and it gives you something more to look into. It gives you more depth. Yeah. I have those, how many? 7 lines or however many it took, done. Now, one thing that I will say that I've learned, paid attention to recently and figured out is that when you're scraping and carving on a whale's tooth, you'll get the cleanest cuts going from the tip to the root end. And that has to do with the way that it grows. And I don't know if you're familiar out there in the world of Dixie cups, but if you can imagine conical Dixie cups stacked up, yeah, that's pretty much how the grain lays in on these things. So when you're gouging or digging from the tail, from the root end up towards the tip, it wants to dig in and chatter and chip and do things that you don't want it to do, but it'll cut nice and smooth going towards the tail. I keep wanting to say tail, towards the root side. But right now I'm at the bottom here, and the tail feathers, they have a bit of a sweep to them, right? So you have to be very conscious about this, and slow and deliberate and forceful all at the same time. curves to the bottom here. And those can be adjusted. This is just kind of like a rough start to the operation. If I need them to curve more or take a little more off, it's not an impossible thing to do. I want this tail to have some depth to it. I don't want it to be flat like it's been ironed. So I'm going to carve some of these feathers pretty deep. I've got over 1/8 of an inch of material, and I'm fixing on using it. As I was saying about going up underneath the wing here, this is like my #1 favorite tool, and it's just a triangular file that I've ground down, careful not to take the temper out of it, into a point, and then you hone it so that you've got a cutting edge up each of these 3 sides. Not all the way, but at least, you know, a good 3/8 of an inch or so. You can use this for scraping, carving, and what I'm going to use it for right now is I'm going to use it as a point to carve those lines up further underneath the wing like this. You have to adjust the angle that you're approaching at so that you don't get into that over dig. You don't want to go too deep. So now they're all lined in on this side. We will worry about the rest later. I want it pretty deep here, and I've got a little chisel, made this 100 years ago out of a round little rat tail jeweler's file. So again, we're going towards the root end, so it should cut pretty nice and smooth. You can see the nice curl. That's a piece of ivory, folks. It's wouldn't think that it would curl like a piece of wood like that. There it is. I'll show you a trick because you can see the thickness of it, the material that I have to work with here, and I want to come down quite a ways on it. So these things can be very aggressive if you want them to be. And that be done like this by walking it down.
Oh yeah, I can see that.
Mm-hmm. I'd have to be more careful coming in the opposite direction for the reasons I mentioned before. The grain tends to want to pull you in deeper. You can see the resulting texture is funky, and you can use this technique for texturing a piece that you want to look like that in the end. You know, walking engraving they call it. Right now I call it hogging out. There, so I've got the face of that feather pushed back where I want it. I'm going to take a chisel, just clean up the step to the next feather. Basically going to do that same process all the way across to get most of the material removed, and then I'll go back with various tools and really finalize it. As I start to scrape the face of the feather down with this, my #1 favorite tool, and at the same time using the point to start mining underneath the feather above it. Say what you want. I've grown to enjoy that sound of scraping, scratching. Okay, that's been pretty well established. And I've got this neat little tool. It's a repurposed dental tool, pick, scraper, whatever it was. I think of it as a squirrel's claw. It's sharp. It's triangular again. It goes to a triangular point. There's a sharp cutting edge on the leading edge here, and then the squared off part is on the underside, and you use it by drawing it towards you, and you do it gently and let it do its thing. Don't force it to dig, and leave you me. It's cutting off fine little dusts.
And that is exactly what happens when the hygienist is working in your mouth.
Pretty close. This is a lot softer than our teeth.
And then later you'll put in the lines for the, you were saying?
Yeah, after I get all the feathers cut in, which I'm almost there, then I get to start scratching in, actually scrimshawing in the fletching of the feathers.